Hello and welcome to a new episode of Josh's Car Corner. This is part 3 of Project E38, where I am trying to convert my GTO to run on the more modern E38 computer. So there have been some bumps in the road that I have hit, but thanks to the help of some very generous people, have been able to find some solutions. So let me explain. So first off, one of the things I was talking about is that with the harness in the GTO, the two connectors that are connecting all of the stuff for the engine come off, and you can take that whole harness out of the car. But the one that goes on this blue connector, which is what we call the body harness, stays with the car. And unfortunately, it kind of infests itself into everything. It goes into the fuse block on the passenger side. It goes all the way up to the headlights. It goes to the electronic brake control module. And then, of course, it goes into the car, where some of it plugs into the BCM, the body control module, some things behind the dash, and taking that harness out to work on it is a nightmare. So what I was gonna have to do is cut the harness somewhere on the firewall, but then I was gonna have to put connectors on it to put back together. And the problem is, there's a lot of wires going on in there. There are 32 wires in there if you have a manual transmission, and if you have an automatic, there are 33 wires. You have one extra wire for the park neutral safety signal switch. Fortunately, I came across Delphi, which makes all the GM electronics. They actually make a set of 16-pin connectors, and you can buy them. I bought them on eBay. I bought 2 of them. So you get male and female ends, you get the pins, you get the insulating grommets, and everything to put them together. And they're what they call the GT150 series connectors, and you can get them anywhere from 2 all the way up to 16-pin. So I'm going to get 2 16 pins, which is exactly enough to repin everything in the harness, and I'm just going to label them, and I've already prioritized in a spreadsheet how I'm going to lay everything out. Going to try to do it in a logical order, so everything that does the same thing or things that are similar are near each other, so it all in a logical way makes sense. So those connectors are on the way, and once I find the right crimping tool to be able to crimp the new pins on, I'm going to get up there and I'm going to cut the harness in half. I figured out where I'm going to do it, and I'm going to start repinning one at a time and adding the wires to these connectors and getting that all set up so that I can take the harness away, bring it down here, and I can start tying it into this when it comes time to start repinning it for the E38. So the other thing I've come across is one issue I was going to have. See, when the cars run with a Gen 4 motor in the E38, they are set up in a way that is unique to that car when it comes to starting. So if you have an 04 GTO with LS1, or you have 0506 with the E40, or even in Australia, if you get one with a V6, the Alloy Tech 3.6 liter, what happens is on the ignition key switch, when you go to turn the key to the start position, a wire is having a signal sent to it when the cylinder is in that start position. And on all of those cars, it actually sends 12 volts to a pin on the ECM. It's called the crank request pin. So what happens is 12 volts comes in on that pin. The ECM says, oh, I've got a request to start. Then it talks to the BCM and says, hey, BCM, do you like the key that's being used right now? And the BCM responds back, yeah, I like the key. And the ECM says, cool, let's start the car. Well, unfortunately, the E38 computers don't have a crank request pin. So you have to get that request to the computer in a different way. And I've discovered that what Holden did as a workaround was use the powertrain interface module as the source of the signal. So this right here is the powertrain interface module out of my car. When you pull down that panel where all the fuses and the relays are, tucked up behind all of that, you'll find this being held in by one little Phillips screw, and it's got this 20-pin connector that goes into it, and it's tucked way up in there. So what they do is they take pin 11, which in our cars is used for nothing, there's not even a wire going to it, and they reroute that wire for the ignition switch start position to here. The signal is then converted into CAN bus by the powertrain interface module, sent to the ECM. Then it checks with the BCM. Hey, do you like the key? BCM replies back yes. Then the signal gets sent out on the relay pin for the starter. So you have to have a PIM that's programmed. And what I have discovered is these PIMs that we have, of course, pin 11 does nothing. However, thanks to some information I've acquired from a very helpful guy in Australia on the Just Commodores forum, what I have discovered is there are different versions of the PIM that you can get. Like right here, this is actually a GM part number, even though it doesn't look like it. The 92181 is the first 5 numbers of the GM part number, and then the 030 is the last 3. Well, there's many different versions of these PIMs, and there are versions that have got newer hardware revisions, newer EE numbers, and newer CI numbers, and more importantly, up here, higher software numbers. And those have the pin enabled. Thanks to what I learned from the guy on the Just Commodores forum, I don't have to get one of those, which means I don't have to break the security link, and I don't even need to break the security link to reconfigure this thing. It's just something you do with the Tech 2. So I'll get that reconfigured. I will rerun the pin for the crank request back into the car, bring it down to the PIM, get a pin, put it on pin 11, and then that takes care of the crank request, and then the car should start. So the next thing that I'm going to have to do so I can reconfigure all this stuff and do the security link with the E38 to this thing is I'm going to have to build myself a bench harness. And I've already gotten a pretty good start on that. So this past week on eBay, I managed to find somebody who was selling another E38 ECU out of a Corvette. So this has got the right service number and the connectors for it too. So if you look at this connector, it's a little broken back here, but for my purposes, that doesn't matter. I'm already got this part set up. It's got 3 power wires, it's got a ground, and then this part right here is the can. And by the way, if you ever are digging into a body harness or a wiring harness for a car and you rip all the jacketing off, you'll find this. When you see twisted pairs like this, that is always for the can. Now it can be tan and tan black typically, and that is can high and can low. But sometimes, as I found when I started tearing into the Camaro harness, which is where I got this from, sometimes it's blue and blue with black. The Camaro actually does a weird thing where it sends the CAN link, the CAN bus network actually goes to the throttle body and comes back. So somehow those throttle bodies must be different, and requests and information are being sent on the CAN rather than being sent on their own separate wires. It's probably part of another step in just integrating everything on the CAN. So now I've got a couple of extra connectors and I've got all the extra wiring in the world thanks to the Camaro harness. But the thing I was lacking and was really going to need was a data link connector, or what we also know as the OBD2 connector that's under the dash. I was going to need a connector for plugging into a powertrain interface module, and I was also going to need the connectors for a body control module, just on the off chance that I also need to reconfigure a body control module or ever security link a new body control module. I wanted to have a harness that can do all of it at the same time. And fortunately, there is a very nice guy on the 0406 GTO Trade and Sell Facebook page that has got a 05 6-speed parts car that has been completely stripped out, and he's just been taking parts off of it for years. He's gonna send me the PIM connector and the BCM connectors and an OBD2 connector, so I'll have everything I need to build my bench harness. Hopefully I'll get those parts in the next few days. My buddy Sean says he has a crimper to crimp all these new pins on, both for the Delphi connector and for the connectors for the E38. Hopefully I'll have some good news in the next week or so about how things are progressing, but things are looking good. It's getting closer and closer to me getting an extra Gen 4 engine and getting ready to throw it in the car and see if this is all gonna work like I think it will. So keep looking for updates. I will update you as soon as I make some more breakthroughs. And thanks for watching Josh's Car Corner. See you soon.